seeing a patient benefit from a novel therapy with less side effects, goes into remission, someone who wouldn't have had the same amount of hope years ago is just like amazing.
That's everything. So I think that trials are rewarding professionally because of those interactions with our colleagues, both locally and then internationally. We get to work with them and eventually disseminate that work. But on a very kind of personal level, to be able to work on that trial for the years it takes to get it in development and all the steps along the way and really kind of own that, but then be able to go to the bedside to a patient and say, you know, you were who I kind of had in mind when we were designing this trial. This is why I think this is an important thing for you to do. This is why I think this could help you. Are you interested? Is really the most rewarding thing, because you get to see the fruits of your labor and all the effort that it took to really bring it to a patient and give them an opportunity that they wouldn't have elsewhere at other institutions is really, I think, the most rewarding part of trials so far.
I agree. I think sitting in clinic, all that time and effort, writing, dealing with regulatory requirements, and then seeing a patient benefit from a novel therapy with less side effects, goes into remission, someone who wouldn't have had the same amount of hope years ago is just like amazing.
That's everything. I think it's fun to work with our colleagues and even though it is, you know, a hard process to organize, like we get good relationships both in the clinical trials office with our mentors obviously, and then in people who we work with outside of the institution, and those are normal friendships and relationships that we get to have, and that's the fun part. And then I also think that patients enjoy talking about trials, and it's fun to talk with them, and they're excited to hear about it. So that's a fun and enjoyable part too.
I agree, and even meeting and interacting with our European or Asian colleagues at some of the ex-US meetings, I think you just gain amazing perspective on healthcare around the world and how patients are treated differently. I'd say clinical trials really drive much of how we treat patients, and because of the pace of development, the standard of care changes every 6 months, would you say?
Yeah.
And it is hard to keep up with, but being part of clinical trials actually makes it easier because you're involved in the development, you're learning, you're watching patients get treated, you're seeing the side effects.
Participating in clinical trial research is the best way to learn about how to conduct those trials. You know, it's not something that we learn in school, in medical school. So while there are, you know, clinical development programs that we can have either at the university or nationally, the best way to learn about that is to design your own trial under everyone's mentorship and guidance, but to take that concept through to fruition and learn all those steps is really how we, I think, get good at designing the future trials.
Yeah, and then when you are at the ASH meeting, you're up on the podium, you're presenting, it's amazing how you start developing this group of investigators that you work with, especially the classes of drugs that you're working closely with. You're getting their insights, you're learning about their experiences from their patients, and it just keeps growing. Then you're developing the next generation of trials.